Well, hello, and welcome to the Best Football Show. I'm Brian Baldinger at Baldy NFL right there on all the platforms, whether it's X these days or TikTok or Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, at Baldy NFL. You can find this podcast. Just download your free Odyssey app, and on it, you can find the Best Football Show. And honestly, I'm going to wrap this up today with some Ask Baldy Anything questions. Just throw them at me. Because I wrapped up my off season here on a trip to Jacksonville on Wednesday. Today is Friday, June the 13th, I believe. But anyways, I wrapped up my off season of visiting teams at their OTAs or mini camps. And I was a guest of the Jaguars on Wednesday. They practiced at 9 in the morning. It was a good 2 hours and 15-minute practice. And I spent the day with Tony Baselli, the new executive vice president, former player and Hall of Fame left tackle, James Gladstone, the new general manager, and the head coach, Liam Cohen. I spent time with all of them, and it was good because I got a really chance to watch practice with Baselli and Gladstone. Got a chance after practice to go down and talk to Liam for a while. I like what Jacksonville is doing because I feel like for the first time in a long time, they've got real structure to build this thing properly with a very bright coach, very talented coach, I think, in Liam Cohen. You just have to spend time talking to him, and you see how emphatic he is. He's going to be the play caller, the leader. I think he's the face of the organization right now, to be honest with you. And then James Gladstone really worked the draft, starting with the trade up to get Travis Hunter, and really just evaluating, the 8 picks that they had: Ransaw, the corner from Tulane; Milam, the guard from West Virginia. You go watch him against a lot of different players, and he just wired them up. You watch him against Abdul Carter, and he just eliminated him. So he's a guard now, played offensive tackle at West Virginia. But you go through the list. You look at the free agents that they signed. But it was interesting just listening to them talk about the draft, how they approached free agency. They didn't go crazy spending money, but they got players like Dyami Brown, from Washington, who had a great second half of the season. And you look at how he fits into this offense, and it's the right guy for the right price for the right team. So you put Brian Thomas Jr., Dyami Brown, and Travis Hunter out there on the field in a 3 wide receiver set. That's a talented trio. That's talented. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. can run and accelerate like nobody's business. And Travis is you just watch him turn corners around in practice, come out of his breaks. And then Dyami Brown is just a big, fast receiver. And then you go, okay, Brenton Strange is a guy that was a second-round pick a couple of years ago at tight end to go with Johnny Munt, who came with Liam, was with Liam with the Rams, and his role as a tight end. Hunter Long was a guy that the Rams drafted. So they got guys that, that the coach knows, which I think is important. And so then you talk to Baselli and you talk to James Gladstone, the GM, and you go through the players that they liked in the draft. So they have this thing. It's actually kind of interesting. Like they have this thing where you evaluate the player and you give him basically a grade or a score. So let's just say Bayshul Tootin. Okay, he's a South Jersey kid. He was a running back at Virginia Tech. He's one of the fastest backs in the draft. He ran the 4.3s. So you just say take Bayshul. So let's just say they drafted Bayshul in the 4th round, number 104. So they would give Bayshul a score for the draft and where they think he should be slotted. But then they have a sentiment score, like how bad do you want the kid? How bad do you want to draft him? And do you want him to be a Jaguar? And they would give him another score. So you could say, let's just say Armand Membu, the tackle that the Jets took with the 7th pick. Like they might have him as a really high-graded player out of Missouri, but not a great sentiment scorer. So they had two different scores. And so there was a battle in a lot of these picks and players. They only had, if you're looking at just their sentiment score, they only, I think, had 31 players in the whole draft that they were madly in love with. They might recognize the talent, the production, the college production, but when it came down to the whole thing, talking to all the people you talk to, doing all the background checks, sitting in the meetings with them, inviting them for workouts, they only had 31 players that they were in love with, that they wanted to become Jaguars. So it's, you just, and I'm not going to give away anything on any player. I'm not going to do that, but I'm not going to betray the trust. But it's interesting how teams look at the draft, look at players, look at free agency, look at building a roster. If you look at what Liam Cohen just did in Tampa, okay, he came from the Rams, was there with Sean McVay for a while. Was a big part of their success, winning the Super Bowl, the whole thing. But Tampa had not been able to run the football for like literally 4 years in a row. Since Brady was there, they weren't able to run it. They were dead last in 2023 running the football. Dead last, 32nd. Total yards per rush, et cetera. Last year, I think they were 5th in running the football. It's not just because they drafted Bucky Irving or Graham Barton, the center. It's the way that they did it. And so Jacksonville has not been able to run the football. I was telling this story to Tony Baselli. If you go back, and hopefully some of you that are watching this here right now are Jaguar fans, but if you go back to 2023, week 18, they played in Nashville. If they won the game, they won the division. It's just that simple. Jacksonville goes to Nashville. They win the division. They win the game. They win the division. I go there, doing national radio. They sent me there for that game because the game meant that much. And a lot of the games, week 18, 2023, didn't have a lot of impact. But this was a pretty simple thing. Go to Nashville, beat the Titans, win the division, have a home playoff game the following week. And they get beat. And not only did they get beat, and then Houston ends up winning the division and going on and doing what they did in the playoffs. But not only that, but they have first and goal at the 1 with a chance to win the game, and they couldn't score from the 1 yard line. And it was kind of downhill from there. And it sort of defines a lot of the problems Jacksonville has had since then. They haven't been able to run the ball effectively. They haven't been able to run it when they have to be able to run it, when they need to run it, when they need to win big games. They couldn't do it. So, you could say, okay, Travis Etienne, just hasn't been very good, or, Tank Bigsby isn't big enough, or the offense line's not good enough, like all these things. So they really addressed the offense line. Robert Hainsey comes in from Tampa to play center. All right. And he was the center before Graham Barton was a first-round pick, won the job. So he kind of knows. So that's, if you're looking at Jacksonville here, start with the basics. The very basics that every coach preaches. But I believe it's going to be important. They're going to be able to run the football. Like, will Trevor Lawrence be a part of it? Yeah, he's going to be a part of it. They have to be able to stop the run. They are expecting big things from Mason Smith, Devon Hamilton, Eric Armstead. They got to get better play out of him. Interior. I think the ends and Trayvon Walker, who's not going anywhere despite all the rumors. Josh Hines Allen. Like, those two guys are the bookend defensive ends, new defensive coordinator. But the big thing that they talked about was in 17 games last year, the Jaguars had 8 takeaways. 8. So if you want to help your quarterback out, get him the ball. Get him more at-bats. Get him the ball in better position. Let the defense set the offense up. That's one way. Running the football is another way. Getting 3 stud receivers to throw to is another way. But the takeaways, and Coach Campanile is the defense coordinator. They were practicing the peanut punch during practice, punching the ball out, getting the ball on the ground. You look at the teams last year, that were at the top of the leaderboard in takeaways. Buffalo had 32 takeaways, all right, wins the division. Pittsburgh had 33 takeaways. Despite poor quarterback play, they led the league with 33 takeaways. The Minnesota Vikings, all right, playoff teams, 33 takeaways. So, if you want to improve, Jacksonville had 8 takeaways. They were minus 15. So the offense is turning the ball over at a rate that nobody wants to. 15 interceptions was the second most. There was Tennessee and Cleveland. But, you want to limit your turnovers and take the ball away. You want to be in the plus turnover ratio, the high plus, like every single one of these teams, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Chargers, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Houston, Detroit, the top 8 teams in takeaway margin all made the playoffs. So that's something that Jacksonville is really looking at. But I like the staff. I like the front office. I like the role that Tony Baselli has. They're making all kinds of improvements to the stadium. They're not playing 2 games in London this year. They're just playing 1 game. So there's a lot of things, I think, going in Jacksonville's favor right now. And look, a big part of it is Trevor Lawrence has to play better. I think he's won 3 of his last 18 starts. I think that's right. Okay. I mean, it's a horrible record. So he's got to play better. But this is things that they're doing around him to maybe allow him to play better. All right, that's that. We're going to get to a section here at the end just called Ask Baldy Anything. And so I think this is a time here in the final couple of minutes here before everybody. And by the way, this week, yesterday, Thursday, this is Friday morning, but yesterday ended the offseason for all teams. Mini camps were finished. Everybody takes a break for vacation. Coaches, front office, players, they disappear for the next 5 weeks before we get ready for training camp. And I will be in the studio for the NFL Network all 3 preseason game weekends doing the analysis around certain games. I could give you the schedule here, but I'll be out there. We have Back Together Saturday and Sunday. That starts July 26th and 27th. I don't know where I'm going to be yet, but I'm going to find out pretty soon. And then last year I went to 12 different training camps. I'd like to get to at least 12 this year. I know I'd like to get to the Eagles, Jets, Giants. I'd like to get back to Jacksonville. I'd love to get to Chicago. But wherever they want to send me. You want to send me out to the Chargers. I'd love to go see the Chargers. You go out to LA, you can see the Chargers, the Raiders, the Cowboys, and the Rams all in one swoop. So I'd love to get out there for a West Coast swing since the Raiders are practicing in Southern California. Which offensive line do I see the most improved this season? Well, I think Chicago is going to be good. Like if you just look at all the guys they signed in Chicago, I think they have a chance to be improved because you're going to get, first of all, you're going to get Joe Tooney back at left guard. Okay. He's an all-pro left guard. You're going to get Drew Dahlman, who was the starting center in Atlanta, that really helped that team run the football great. At center, you're going to get Jonah Jackson coming from the Rams. He got banged up last year, but he's a good player. And then I've always been high on Darnell Wright. I think he's got to get healthy. And then I just think the system that he's going to be in, I think he has a chance to be really good. And then you've got a real battle, I think, at left tackle between Braxton Jones, who's the incumbent. They drafted Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College in the second round. And then Kieran Armagagi was from Yale, who was a third-round pick last year, who now gets a full year under his belt, bigger, stronger, played a little bit last year. I think they've got competition at tackle, and I think they're much better on the interior. They should be able to run the ball with DeAndre Swift and Rashawn Johnson, and they should protect a whole lot better. I forget exactly, but I think Caleb was sacked 68 times, an absurd amount of times. Surprised like he lined up and played every game last year. But I think the Bears have the chance to be the most improved. You look at both Buffalo and Tampa return all 5 starters from a year ago. I don't know off the top of my head who else is going to do that. I would say Seattle has a chance to be greatly improved as well, Mark. Anyway, that's at Mark Larson, 28. Let me see if there's at VSP Miami. What's it going to take for the Miami Dolphins to be a successful team? Well, I saw the Dolphins 2 weeks ago, and I think a couple things. One, Mike McDaniel is making a concerted effort to really make the team tougher. They were conditioning when I was out there in training camp. I haven't seen any teams conditioned during OTAs. They were practicing in the rain because it rains in South Florida, so get used to it. I think getting Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Chop Robinson all in the field healthy is going to be huge. Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant inside, they could be very good defensively in the front. The secondary looks awfully weak to me. Like that looks like it's a problem area. But offensively, I'm a big believer in they got to be able to run the ball better. All right, so they've made a lot of changes on the offensive line, and so I think they have a chance to be an outstanding offense because I think Patrick Paul can be a very good left tackle. He's huge. James Daniels comes in to play guard. Aaron Brewer still at center. They drafted Jonah from Arizona to compete with Liam Eichenberg at right guard. Austin Jackson is healthy. If they can run the ball and protect reasonably well, I mean, Tyreek is committed. Jalen Waddle is fast as ever. Devon Achane is like the guy caught 6 touchdown passes and 78 passes last year. Now, the short passing game was their running game last year, and Devon was a big part of it. Jalen Wright is ready to bust out. So I think they drafted Ollie Gordon, who's a big back, maybe helps them on short yardage goal line. I think offensively, they could be a top 10 offense, especially if Tua stays healthy. It's just a question right now, defensively. Their secondary, I don't know, like I'm holding my breath, but their front should be very good. So anyways, that's Miami. That will do it. Let me see. We got out Scouts Honor Show. Do the Giants have a realistic shot at being the second best team in the NFC East? I don't think so. I don't think they're able to make the jump right now. I mean, I love the draft of the Giants. I think Scatterboo and Darius Alexander and Marcus Bowe, I think all those guys can contribute. If the offense line stays healthy, Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Scatterboo should be able to run it. We'll see how the quarterback situation plays out with Russell and Jameis, but they got to play Jackson Dart at some point. And the schedule is ridiculously tough. So I think the Giants could be improved and still have a bad record. It just because the schedule is that stacked. But I don't think they were going to jump in front of Philadelphia or Washington, possibly Dallas like that, but I think Dallas should bounce back, have a winning record this year. All right. Last question here at Lady Sports Hold. PFF ranked the Browns 2025 roster last. What's your take on this? Even if Shador wins the job, does he have a good enough support staff to help the team? Well, look, I mean, this is our projections. I'm not here to bash PFF, but let's give this team a chance right here to come together. Remember, when Joe Flacco was last in Cleveland, all right, he won 4 of his last 5 games. They went to the playoffs with Joe. All right, let's just say Joe Flacco wins the job, stays healthy. He's never been hurt, really. I mean, Joe's came in this league in 2008. So this is his, 16th year. But if you put, I'll say this. If you put Joel Bitonio, Ethan Posick, and Wyatt Teller as your interior 3, they're about as good as anybody. All right. Now, can Jack Conklin stay healthy? Can DeJuan Jones hold down the left tackle spot? If they can, because I like DeJuan. He's got to stay healthy now. Good rookie year. But you look at what Judy did last year. You look at, it's not great, but, you have Njoku, you have Judy. You drafted Tillman. They got a chance to be okay. And then look, Quinshawn Judkins is a great back. Like, he's going to be their starting running back. Defensively, just don't underestimate Jim Schwartz as a defense coordinator. I think they're going to be, Miles wants to win another Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think they're the last roster in this business right now. I think they have a chance to win 6 to 8 games, which wouldn't be the worst roster in the NFL. If this offensive line stays healthy, they're going to be good. They know how to run the ball. Kevin Stefanski knows how to run it. All right. That's my take on Cleveland and the roster right here. I think they have a chance to be on the offensive line. They have a good offensive line. They have a good offense. All right. That's Ask Baldy Anything. That's it for this edition of the Best Football Show. Thanks for joining me, and I will talk to you real soon, everybody.